So I'd like to talk about a few of these situations in particular. So like I said, I was driving all over Connecticut, and I went to Greenwich, Connecticut. And I drove to the end of Route 1, and I passed this condominium or apartment complex, and a feeling of sadness, immense sadness, hit me. It was a strange feeling because it wasn't just sadness, it was like a good person, a really good person wasn't too happy. So I turned around and I drove back, and I got the same feeling when I passed this condo complex again. So I drove into the condo complex, and I'm driving through, and I pass these little apartments. It looks like an elderly complex is what it looked like. So I pass this one place, and I feel this strong feeling like love though, but something wasn't right. And as I drove past, the feeling kind of faded. So I backed up, and there was a parking space open in front of this house. And they had put a sign out, and the sign was like for Santa Claus to stop, but there's a sign that said stop out there. And I pulled up in front of that house where I had this feeling, and I immediately recognized what was happening there, because the same thing happened to me and my family in that condominium, in my old condominium in Waterbury. That's CIA witches move in, and they basically torture the people that live around them. And so I heard like someone hitting the wall, and it sounded like it was a girl kind of wailed out, like not again or something like that, she said. And she like smashed something in her room. And I looked over, and the apartment adjoining her, I just had a bad feeling about that place. And I sensed that they turned on some sort of frequency weapon, and they were hitting her with their projections. And I'm glaring at that house, and the people in that house like start stomping and banging on their table to get rid of me, and they're used to like manipulating people. And how I look at that time, I'm shaking my head no. And I'm like telling them to like come out of that house. And their first question was, am I the head vampire? That's the first thing they guessed me to be. And the second one was, are you the snake people? Because I guess they're used to manipulating most people. And I looked a little fired up, and I looked like I wanted to kill them, and I wasn't backing down to them. And all of a sudden I feel the demons being pulled out of that house and hitting me. And the first person to leave that house full of witches was a younger female. She didn't look too much like an evil person. She looked about 25, 27 at the oldest. And she walked out, and she looked kind of relieved, and she got into the car and left. And then I had battle with the other two ones. There was two left in there. And there was an older man and woman. The man must have been 50 or 60, the woman about same as his age. They were Hispanic, heavy, thick Coke bottle glasses. The first witch that left, the younger girl, was a white girl, so I don't think they were related. And again, they started stomping their feet and, you know, trying to get rid of me. And I said, I'm not leaving. And they're like, well, you know, what are you doing here? I said, I'm here for whoever's in that house. And so they, like I said, they thought I was, you know, someone who had more power than they had. So I must have been, you know, the head vampire or the snake people. So eventually they came out of the house and, you know, they were older, more set in their ways, but they eventually got in their little minivan and took off. And there was a lot of conflict in that neighborhood. As you know, when the CIA moves in, they set up houses. You know, it's just not just one house. There's a few different units around there. And so there's a lot of action around there. Some other people left. And it's kind of strange that happens. But finally, it's like everything calmed down. And this beautiful girl, she must have been like 16 years old, and she's Hispanic, and she like ran out of the house that had been targeted. And I'm sitting like right there in front of the house, and as she's running, she doesn't notice me. And when she finally sees that there's this strange guy parked, you know, right in front of her house, she like, she stops suddenly and she gets in like this fighter's pose, and she just had fire in her eyes, you know. She's a beautiful girl, beautiful, strong, intelligent girl. And she glared at me for a second, like I had snuck up on her, you know. And so instantly I didn't want her to have any bad feelings about me, right? So I put the car in reverse, I kind of waved at her, you know, see you later. And she kind of looked at me, and she had this kind of smile came across her, right? And she looked kind of happy and relieved. And they wanted to change her because she was so beautiful and so strong. So I just kind of, you know, I just drove off, you know. And another one I would like to mention was an order that was called the Our Lady of Sorrows Order. And it consisted of a group of nuns, a hierarchy of nuns. And of course they had a head witch who was kind of a plant. She was pretty bad, and she called herself Alley Cat. And she was older, and she had a whole group of women underneath her who were extremely despaired. And what they're told in that order is that they carry with them the restless spirit of Joan of Arc, who was the real Christ, a female Christ, but she's never acknowledged as such because this information is suppressed by the men who remain dominant in the Catholic Church. So they guard this knowledge, but the terrible anger of the restless spirit of Joan of Arc, the female Christ, has to torture them, has to torture this order. So I want them to know that Joan of Arc was a female Christ, but she's with the Palladians now. And what they're haunted by is Belial and his legion of Dracs and demons. So like I said, at the top of this was this old hardcore plant called Alley Cat, which kind of runs everyone else. And her enforcer, if you will, was a younger female, about 35 years old. She was Italian, she was short, she was stout, she had her hair, curly hair cropped real short. black eyes. They probably housed her in some sort of prison or mental facility because she was not only mentally disabled but highly violent. And what they do is they project a lot of the Dracs and demons. She holds on to them, and she basically, they're told that she contains the restless spirit of Joan of Arc. So I faced these Dracs and demons, and they went into me. That was a tough fight. At times, if I knew like a plant stuck, which meant it was hard to fight, I know it, I'll get extremely angry or have trouble maintaining my vital signs. So I'll need to, at that point, drive home and meditate. Now at home, my father was becoming more and more possessed, and he wasn't handling the demons too well. And he would approach me wild-eyed and look like a ghoul. He looked like a bug-eyed ghoul, and he was drunk on the power. And he would attempt to use this on me, taking me as naive because he is a witch. He's a CIA handler who's used to manipulating others, especially when he gets filled with this power. And I'll try to talk with him nicely until he begins to rant or provoke me, make strange demands on me, in which I'll leave the house. And then I would go back when, he'd already gone back to his part of the house. And I decided that it was dangerous for me to stay around there because he was beginning to act extremely aggressive and attempt to provoke me into a fight with him. And I couldn't risk arrest or anything happening like that. I didn't want to hurt him either, because he was not himself. He had been totally possessed.